We're going to go back to actual modern day baseball. Looking ahead to 2023, we're going to talk power rankings 2023 with James Chiano. And James, good to see you.
What's up, Nick? How you doing, pal?
I'm doing fantastic. Look at that mic. You don't need a sock over that one now.
No, this is actually my new and improved Mets mic. Yeah, this is
unbelievable. The Mets mic. Well, you have a stellar cast with you here. I'm going to bring them in. Now we have Sarah Lang. Sarah, it's so great to see you.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. Exciting
Absolutely.
to be here.
And of course, Randy Wilkins as well. Randy, great to see you. I'm sorry, I should say Pam's son. I apologize.
That's all right. My mom's not around, so it's all right. You can just call me Randy. I appreciate it.
But anyway, I'm gonna let you guys get to it. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
So everybody who's sticking with us or jumping in for this panel, you guys just heard, I'm James Chiano. We have Sarah Langs right here, Randy Wilkins. You might know Randy from being an Emmy-winning filmmaker, possibly the captain on ESPN or Deer on Apple TV, as well as the Yankees analytics-focused blog, Views from 314 Feet, or Sarah for just being researcher extraordinaire, foremost baseball expert we got here, MLB, ESPN, previously SNY, Let's Go Mets. And then me, just quick messed up podcast, hanging out. Used to be pitcherless for a very long time, but super excited to be here with you guys.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to get this going and be here with you guys.
Beautiful. So, Sarah, I want to pose the first question to you as probably one of the most foremost positive people in the baseball media landscape. To start off our power rankings, I would like you to tell me, in your opinion, who's the worst team in baseball?
Oh, no, that is not fair. Oh, my gosh. All right. So I thought you were going to ask about number 1. I think number 30 has to be the A's right now. I mean, no disrespect, they actually do a great job with their media podcast stuff. Love Chris Townsend, Cody Elias. They do a great job with A's Cast. The team itself, maybe not on their level. So unfortunately, I think I have to go with the A's. I was thinking about the Pirates. I was thinking about the Nats, but overall, I think it has to be the Oakland A's.
Randy, are you in agreement?
I'm very much in agreement. Unfortunately, I like the A's. I like Oakland. I like their history, but I don't see how you can pick somebody else. I think there were a couple other contenders, but the A's. I'm sorry for A's fans. It doesn't look good.
No, not at all. They don't even have good enough players for the Yankees to take anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I think that well is run dry.
And then just sticking with this tier here, we want to talk about the bad teams. We're probably not going to talk about them too much. We're going to have way more fun with the best ones. But Sarah, you mentioned the Nationals and the Pirates. Do you think those are like those teams, maybe as well as the Tigers, the Reds? Like, is this kind of what we're in agreement in for this tier?
I think so. I would also put the Rockies there. I mean, I keep waiting for the Rockies to put together a team to kind of get them out of here again. I know we had them in the playoffs a couple of years ago. Feels like a couple of decades ago, but it was pretty recent. But I think, Chris Bryant, even if he has a bounce back year, I'm not really seeing much from the Rockies. So I think I would put them there, maybe the Royals as well, especially with their recent trades. I mean, guys like Michael A. Taylor and Adalberto Mondesi, if he were to have a healthy season, we're probably the guys who are really going to be carrying them to maybe that low middle tier. So I think right now it's kind of waiting on MJ Melendez, Bobby Witt Jr. to really blossom.
And Vinny P. You can't forget the Italian breakfast.
Of course, of course.
It's cool that a team that bad like the Royals has that many like actually exciting, possibly like cornerstone type hitters. Like we talk about like the A's, the Nationals, even the Reds right now, the Rockies. There's not really that kind of probably top level talent you see in a team like the Royals. Like of course their pitching is disastrous, but that is like a little bit like a modicum of fun. And that's also kind of a team like the Pirates, who I think are probably the best shot of all the teams we've mentioned to kind of climb out of this tier. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I was gonna mention the Pirates. I know on Twitter I criticize them. I think rightfully so, just because of the owner and how their kind of like business model. but I do think that their young talent is really exciting, and I think that they're poised to have their young players kind of begin to form that core. I think signing some of the veterans was a smart move, just in terms of the context of helping to finish the development of guys like O'Neal Cruz and Hayes. So I like what the Pirates are doing with their young guys. I know that they have more on the way, and I feel the same way about the Royals. Like, at first, I was wondering why they were moving some of these guys, but I think there's just a commitment now to really just giving this team over to their young guys and letting them get their lumps and understand how to be kind of like that next wave for those particular franchises. So I think the Royals and the Pirates, if you look at it in a certain context, are ready to like move out of that tier a little bit in the next couple years. I'm not really sure where the Tigers fit in all of this, because I'm not really sure what they're doing.
They might not either.
Yeah, they might not either. So the Tigers are also kind of in a weird space. I know that they have some young guys, but they didn't really take a leap or didn't really establish themselves the way that I think most of us would have hoped for them. So the Tigers are in a weird spot, but I think the Royals and the Pirates are in places where they can start to move forward a little bit with their young guys.
Definitely. Tigers are doing that fun thing where they have a couple hitting prospects on like, like right on the edge, and like, we're just going to bring the fences in. Let's try and get you guys over the top over here, which I kind of love. And then I'm just kind of looking at this last tier. I think it'd be a fun way to do this, like in groups of 10. We just very nicely have 30 teams, like a bottom, a middle, and the top. And then my initial instinct for 3 teams, 2 more teams to put in here, we've already named 8, were 2 teams that are kind of like stalwarts in baseball history, but I would say have had interesting year and a half year, and one would be the Red Sox, who I'm sure, Randy, you'd like to take some shots at them.
I'd put them at 30 if I could.
And also maybe a team like the Cubs, who are also still kind of in this middle spot, even though they had a good offseason probably in terms of player acquisition. So you guys think that I'm missing a team that should be behind those 2, or is that round out our bottom 10?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, I would argue the Cubs and the Red Sox are both ahead of the teams we mentioned in terms of ability expectation for this year. I do think Dansby Swanson will be good for the Cubs. I don't think he's as much of a game changer in the signing as some of the other shortstops that were out there this offseason, but he's a really good player for sure. And I do think the Cubs are sort of figuring out, okay, is there another wave of prospects? What are we doing here? They do have good enough players. And then, to the point of the Red Sox, honestly, I love the Mondesi acquisition. I think they might be able to do something with him. I just love the idea of a change of scenery for him. But I think overall, I know a lot of Red Sox fans. I know that the prevailing wisdom is kind of waiting for something else to happen. But having a player like Rafael Devers, it's hard to say you're bottom 10. Maybe you're right ahead of it, but maybe not quite all the way at the bottom there.
Randy, you got 2 minutes to trash the Red Sox on the clock.
They've been trashing themselves, so I think I don't think I need to do much there. But I feel like I keep going back to the same question with these teams, and it's like, what exactly are they doing? I'm not sure what Boston's doing. I think they've had one of the more confounding off seasons in a long time, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Yankees fan. Like, just from a baseball objective viewpoint, I don't know what they're doing. Just with their free agent guys that keep and didn't keep, and bringing certain guys in, I'm not sure what their plan is there. I don't even know like what their profile is anymore. I'm not really sure what their identity is, which is crazy to say about the Red Sox. I think the Cubs could be in the next tier at the bottom. I feel like a team like the Giants are really in this tier. I feel like missing out on Judge and Correa, and I know they signed Haniger and Conforto, but it just feels like it's just not enough. Like, I feel like they're just going to kind of get buried and might end up being like right above the Rockies in that division. Looking at it right now.
Yeah.
I don't think the Giants are a very good team. I think they have good players, but I'm not really sure how this is all going to kind of work together. So I would put the Cubs ahead of the Giants if we're trying to round out this particular tier. I think the Cubs have some nice young players. I know they lost Contreras, but I think they've done enough to kind of give you an idea of where they want to go. The Giants just swung big and missed, and now they're kind of like left without much at the table. So I think that kind of, for me, that knocks them down a little bit.
Interesting. I always just a team like the Giants will give them the benefit of a doubt over a team like the Cubs because I just know they have more pitching. And as we roll on this season, like in this year, it'll help the Giants at least with the what's the word I'm looking for? The schedule changes. Just the fact that they're gonna have less games against the the balanced schedule. But I do like you look at the Giants offense, there's just so little punch. Like if Jock Peterson isn't great again, or if Malcolm Conforto, who hasn't played in a full calendar year, doesn't return, like what do you really get from there? The other team I think that was kind of close to this tier was possibly the Twins, kind of for similar reasons. I think the Pablo Lopez trade helped their rotation a lot, but they're a team who I think is almost we saw how poor they were last year. They're also going to be a team that gets hurt by the balanced schedule, like kind of unfavorably moving in the wrong direction here.
See, I think I would put Minnesota in the next tier for sure. I think that they'll contend for the division title. Even with the balanced schedule, I think Correa coming back is like a huge boom for them. I think that they did address pitching as much as they could. It doesn't seem like they ever like really address their pitching with any type of significance. A lot of it also is like health. You know, Byron Buxton has to play. He has to be healthy. I think if he's like a full-time player, he elevates that team. I don't know. I see why you're saying it, but I do think Minnesota is a division contender, even though it's the AL Central. I don't know how far that like really gets you, but
it gets you to Yankee Stadium for a loss.
Exactly. I'm trying to be respectful here. I don't want to be too biased, but I do like what Minnesota has done, especially with Correa kind of like falling back in their laps, and I like Miranda a lot. I think he's a really good hitter. When they played the Yankees, I thought he was like pretty impressive. I don't know what's going on with Kepler, but I like Minnesota for what they are. I think they're in that middle tier.
Here's a fun little leading question. Now we're in the AL Central, kind of moving away from these really bad teams. Who you guys think is going to finish with a better record this season, or who's going to be higher in these power rankings? The Twins or the White Sox? Their two teams are both kind of even. They've had both weird off seasons for very different reasons. White Sox dealing with now tragedy and also something horrible, so they're going to be down a few people from what they expected to be their fleet of pitchers start the season. But if you had to pick one of those teams to have a better record than the other at the end of the season, who would you guys pick?
I really feel like the White Sox were so hurt by injuries last year. And I feel like by the end of the year, with everything the Guardians did, the fact that they were such a surprise, we sort of forgot how injured the White Sox have been. And now I know they won't have Jose Abreu, but, I really believe in Eloy's bat. And I do think Luis Robert can be back to that player who people were picking for MVP after his rookie year, the type of guy in that kind of conversation. I agree with you. These are kind of equally flawed teams in different ways. I am much higher on the Twins now that they re-signed Correa. If not for that, I absolutely would have had them in that bottom 10 tier. But, right now, I think it's going to be very close, but I might go with offense and pick the White Sox to finish with a better record. But I agree that they're very much kind of tied there, very similar.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean Minnesota. I think losing Abreu is a big deal for the White Sox, not just like offensive production, but I think just he's one of the leaders of that team. And sometimes I think for certain organizations that of course, across the board, it matters. But I think for a team like Chicago that has so many like injuries and guys are in and out of the lineup, I think it was important for the Latino players, just having that like vet Latino voice as well. I think that has a lot of value. I think Abreu's a loss on a lot of levels, not just on the field. I would lean Minnesota. I think they they address their pitching a little bit more than what they've had. And I agree with the both of you. They're both equally flawed. I think Cleveland wins that division regardless, but I think I would lean Minnesota. It's just the White Sox always seem snake bit to me. Like there's always something going on. Except even the year when they went to the playoffs, it felt like there was still something going on with them, and they weren't necessarily clicking, or they there might have been like injuries or whatever it was back in 21, I believe. So, or 20, I can't. All the years like are jumbled up now, but I think I'll lean Minnesota, but not like that great of an edge. I think they both like lose the division to Cleveland either way.
I kind of like the pit two teams against each other. I might do that again for you guys right here because there's two other teams in this tier who they're kind of both the back end of it, but they both have incredibly different ways of they've built their teams, and they both play out west, albeit in different leagues. And those two teams are the Angels and the Diamondbacks. Very different, not often compared. So I'm really throwing a monkey wrench at you guys here. I kind of want to hear again, Sarah and Randy. If you had to pick one of those two teams to have a better record than the other in 2023, who you got?
I haven't done all the math on New Balance schedule, so I might have to see exactly which teams they play at home versus not, that kind of thing. But immediately, despite Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, I feel like I gravitate toward the Diamondbacks only because I love what they're doing. I love Corbin Carroll. I love how they looked at the end of the season. And even without Dalton Varsho, I think we forget how good Christian Walker is. I think there's a lot to that team. I kind of think these are teams that equally lack in pitching. I know the Angels made one signing, but there's the whole idea of, okay, the Dodgers fixed you, but can you actually continue that? So I feel like despite what I might want to happen, because I want Trout and Ohtani in the playoffs, I don't think either of these teams makes it. And I feel like I might go Diamondbacks, but I could also totally go the other way.
I like how you started the answer with math. You're like, I haven't seen who they're playing at home and on the road yet. And I was like, that's amazing. That's just such a unique way to look at this. I'm sure many of our listeners are like, wow. Randy, who you got?
Yeah, I think Arizona too. They're one of those teams where it kind of answers that question I've been bringing up a couple of times at this point. Is just I know what they're looking for. I know what they're trying to build. There's a clear identity that they're trying to build there. I do think Lourdes Gurriel helps them. I think he's a nice addition to the team, even though they lost Varsho, but they have so many left-handed outfielders. It felt like they have like 30 of them that getting Gurriel helps, even though he's another outfielder. I think they also benefit from the balanced schedule. They don't have to like play the Dodgers and the Padres 19 times anymore. I think that helps. I think they're athletic. I think that they play athletic too. And I really like Christian Walker. I've been a fan of his like from the beginning, just because I've seen his journey and the like private hitting coaches he's had over the years, and he's kind of like one of their crown jewels. So I've known about him for a long time. So seeing his development is like exciting for me. So I like Arizona, and with the Angels, it just feels like there's always some flawed part of their roster that always holds them back, even with Trout and Ohtani. It just feels like they can never really address their pitching to the point where it complements their offense. And then it just feels like after a while, once you get past Ohtani and Trout and a couple other guys, they don't really have the depth in their lineup. And that seems to like really, really hamper them. They might get off to a good start, or Ohtani and Trout do their thing, but the lack of depth always catches up to the Angels. And I think that's something that people don't really pay a lot of attention to. There's always an emphasis on their lack of pitching, but I also think their lineup just isn't deep. And I think that there are a lot of holes, and it repeatedly catches up to them, where the Diamondbacks, I feel like, they're adding things. And again, another team that added some veterans to kind of support their young guys. So I think they're headed in the right direction, and it helps that they don't have to play the Dodgers and Padres a million times this year.
Definitely. I'm happy that you guys are both interested in Diamondbacks. I feel like just as an MLB TV connoisseur, they were a team that kind of started to fall in love with at the end of last year. Just the Brent Strom effect on all their pitchers, especially Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly, and then just like an athletic offense that we don't see very often this day and age in baseball. And then just quick comment on the Angels. Like, we knew that someone this offseason was probably going to give Tyler Anderson a little too much money. They probably would have taken the average baseball fan 2 or 3 guesses to figure out it would be the Angels, which is kind of funny. And also, I'm looking at their
Sorry, I also think the Artie Moreno thing has an impact on the franchise in general. Just like we're going to sell, then we're not going to sell, and we're still going to have like this guy still running the franchise. And I think that I don't think he's the best thing for the franchise, to be quite honest. And I think that still having that energy around impacts like decision making, obviously, and kind of like the vibe of a team. So I don't think that helps either. You might not see it necessarily on the field, but I believe in culture and like that being top down. And when that's unstable, I think you eventually see it on the field. You might not be able to identify it game by game, but you can kind of tell that like something's off or not like being maximized. And I feel like the Angels are one of those teams.
Definitely. I feel like it's felt that way for a few years with that team, just not being able to figure out the last couple of pieces. So I want to now pivot this to 2 teams who I think were probably 2 of the best stories last year, 2 of the most exciting teams last year in terms of like rising up and helping much maligned fan bases kind of feel joy for the first time in a while. And that is the Orioles and the Mariners. So I'm not going to tell you guys to pick one of these, but I want each of you to give a reason why each team can make the playoffs. No, the Mariners did make it last year, but it got wonky at the end, and they kind of just lost in some of the most disappointing fashion we've seen in the playoffs recently. But say something nice about those 2 teams.
I mean, there's so much nice to say about both of them. As you said, I mean, the Mariners made it. I expect them to make it again. Julio hopefully is healthy all year. If he is, he's an MVP candidate. We've been doing our top 10s on MLB Network. He's my number 2 center fielder behind Mike Trout. I mean, that is where you want to be. That's who you want for your franchise cornerstone. And I mean, that team is so much fun. So, I mean, there's so much great to say about them, even beyond, the Julios. They're doing a Cal Raleigh umbrella giveaway, where it's the type of umbrella where it's like the image is on the inside of it. You know what I mean? And they tweeted out and they said it's Big Dumper approved. So, I mean, it's just amazing. Nothing bad that I can say right now about the Mariners. And for the Orioles, I mean, I'm working on a story right now about how, no disrespect to JT Realmuto, but I think by the end of the year, we may really truly see that Adley is the best catcher in baseball. And so, I mean, so much exciting with them. And I think the other guy who's going to really show us more than a couple weeks worth of what he can do is Gunnar Henderson, who was really exciting when he came up toward the end of the year. He had the hair, he had the hard hit rate, all of the great stuff. And I think that duo is really going to bring the Orioles. Now, I'm not sure that they'll make the playoffs. I think they have a really good shot. I think they will be as good as this past year. But if the Rangers, pitching works out the way it does, I'm just thinking about total number of playoff spots. I'm not sure whether they're in that spot where they're fighting for the final wild card again. But either way, they're going to be really, really exciting.
I love the Orioles. I think that eventually they'll turn into that AL East force that we keep waiting for the Blue Jays to be. Not to say that the Blue Jays aren't good. I don't want to, disrespect the Blue Jays or their fans, but I think the Orioles are well set up to be a significant force sooner than later. And I think one question is, does ownership commit to these young guys and help them out if they're in a position to take that next step this season? I felt like, I know why they did it. I don't agree with it, but I think at the trade deadline, taking pieces away from this team was a travesty. I felt like they were in a position last year to kind of sneak in and compete for that last wild card spot. I fully expect them to compete for the wild card spot this year. I think that they've found their cornerstones, up the middle players, young guys, athletic, impactful. I think they've kind of built this team the right way in terms of just like identifying the positions that need to be the foundational pieces for a franchise. I'm like all in on the Orioles. I feel like, as a Yankees fan, the Yankees are going to have trouble playing those guys this year. I think that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with sooner than later. The Mariners I like because of their pitching. I know that they traded one of their big relievers away, but I think they just have like a great staff. I think that's going to be the backbone of the team. I don't love J.P. Crawford at short. I know that like some of his defensive metrics slipped a little bit. He's not really an impact bat, but I think having Julio and Raleigh and Wong, I think helps out. I think Teoscar is a really good addition for them, a sneaky under the radar acquisition. I know he's basically replacing Haniger, but as someone that saw Teoscar Hernandez a lot, as long as he's healthy, I think he's an impact bat. I think he's really good. And I don't think he gets enough attention. I thought he was one of the most important players on that Toronto team the last couple of years. I'm surprised that they traded him. But I don't know. I like Seattle, but I like Baltimore even more. I mean, I'm like all in on Baltimore. I liked watching them last year, and I agree that Adley Rutschman is going to be the best catcher in baseball soon. I think he's a 15-year Oriole, like, they're Cal Ripken, of this day and age, like just like that guy that's in an Orioles uniform for a long time, a Joe Mauer version for the Orioles. I just think that they have certain guys that could be there for a long time, and really, really make some noise.
Yeah, definitely. Adley just even coming up last year in that tiny little sample was just like remarkably good. It was a little bit silly how good he was. And one of my favorite things about looking at these teams are bullpens, especially as teams try to go from like the middle to the top. And what the Orioles possibly have back there, again, with Bautista and Dylan Tate, is freaky. I'm a huge fan of the TV show The Wire, and I went to a game in Camden this past year, and when they played like the Omar music and they strobe lights for when he comes in from the bullpen, it's probably one of the best entrances in the entire sport right now. It's really a spectacle. Camden Yards itself is incredible, but that was like, wow, this is unbelievable. And he even blew the save that game.
And I'm not I mean, I don't have numbers in front of me, but it just felt like Adley Rutschman made the staff better when he got there. Like it just felt like they performed better. They were confident in him. He knew how to call a game. It just feels like all those catcher things he brings to the table that I'm not sure are always quantifiable. He just brings to the team. I just think he changed that franchise and allowed them to like really have some confidence moving forward. And Cedric Mullins is a great player. I think Cedric Mullins is also someone that doesn't get talked about enough, and people always want to trade for him, and Baltimore smartly kept him, and I think that he's going to be really impactful for them too.
Definitely. Even Santander is another guy, in Austin Hayes. Like the whole outfield, really good and under, I think, respected in terms of like national baseball media. And Sarah, you mentioned the Rangers.
Is really good.
Yeah, really good. Sarah, you mentioned the Rangers before. I was really struggling to find a way to fit them in here, but I'm just going to do a callback to you literally saying their name. You mentioned their pitching. How confident are you in the pitching holding up? The high variance Texas Rangers style of trying to win baseball games?
Very medium. Like very not confident, not like super down on them. It's all going to come back to Jacob deGrom, I think. And I know they have other guys. I know all of that, but ultimately it will be, does Jacob deGrom stay healthy? I mean, I'm an optimist. I will hope he does. I think the team is going to be really good, being managed by Bruce Bochy, who is a Hall of Fame manager, even if he's not in yet, and who will really be able to captain that ship in a really good way. I love Nathaniel Lowe. He was the second best hitter in baseball in the second half by every power metric, behind Aaron Judge last year. and I think he's really going to help. I think they could have used another bat addition, but I think Corey Seager is pretty much underrated at this point. I just sat on like 90th percentile or 95th in expected batting average, expected slugging last year, and everybody's Judge, Jordan, Freddie, and then Corey Seager. And I don't think people realize that about him. And if Marcus Semien could look a little bit more like the MVP candidate, all of this can maybe make up for, as you said, that big variance in pitching. But I'm going to go the optimistic route. It would be really fun to see this team be competitive again.
It's almost funny that DeGrom is barely even the biggest durability risk in that rotation with Heaney and Nathan Eovaldi and John Gray. They're like, I mean, some of them will stay healthy. Like, why not? Might as well. But that's funnier. Randy, you got anything on the Rangers?
They feel like the team that spent a lot of money that won't get a great return. I'm an optimist as well. Maybe not at Sarah's level, but I don't. It just feels like every couple of years there's a team that spends a lot of money and you don't really get what you were paying for. And I think there's so much variance that it's a concern. You know, it's very volatile. And again, another team that I feel like once you get past a couple guys on their lineup, the depth, like the lack of depth, really starts to bite them. So I think that they had a splashy offseason. I understand why they made the moves that they did, but I'm not totally confident that it's going to really result in competing for a playoff spot, and certainly not the division. So I think they spent a lot of money. I think they should be commended for going for it and spending a lot of money. But I'm not sure that it's really going to change their fortunes, at least for this season, just because of the variance and the lack of depth in their lineup.
I tend to agree with that. Now we're going to move out of this tier in 1 second, get to the real teams, the teams that we all think can win World Series. But there's two teams I have left in here who I personally don't respect very much, but I know one of them is guaranteed to make the playoffs. And those are the Cardinals and the Brewers, two teams that kind of fought last year in something a little bit better than mediocrity, and it wound up that both of them actually were kind of mired in that very mediocrity. But
wait, hold on.
What?
They're not in your division. Why don't you not respect these guys?
Every single year a team comes out of the Central, and every single year they find a way to lose as quickly as possible in disappointing fashion. And I hold it against the Cardinals because they spurned the Phillies pennant run. So that made me a little bit frustrated by them. But either of you guys, start with Sarah, pick the team to win that NL Central. And also, if you want to say the Cubs get crazy, you can do that. But the Cardinals or the Brewers, one team with pitching and not that much hitting, and one team with hitting and not that much pitching.
You know, I think I will go Cardinals only because the other sort of X factor here is that I trust that the Cardinals, as we see them right now, will be the same Cardinals throughout the year minus injuries. I wonder if the Brewers could trade Corbin Burnes. There's been so much discussion about whether he'll get an extension. We saw, this was a team that traded Josh Hader last year. So I just think they're a little more volatile in terms of even their superstars. And they were not great toward the end of the year. I loved Devin Williams, but I really liked that setup when they had Devin Williams in the 8th and then Josh Hader in the 9th. I think it's a very different team without that setup. And of course, Burnes is outstanding, and I love Brandon Woodruff, but overall, I'm not sure. Willy Adames is a really fun player. I'm not sure he's fully carrying that team. I love Rowdy Tellez. These are all really fun players, but I think overall, you look at what went on in St. Louis this year with Goldschmidt and Arenado kind of carrying the team, and I figure something like that will happen. And I'm hoping for a big bounce back from Jack Flaherty, so that's another kind of component as well.
Yeah, I would go with the Cardinals for sure. Jack Flaherty is my guy. We talk from time to time, and I'm like he said, he's healthy, he's ready to go. He's been like raring to go. I think being able to pitch last year towards the end of the year, after being on a 60-day DL, is a positive. I know he's having a good offseason so far. So I think, if he keeps trending in that direction, I think that's a huge addition to their pitching staff. I think because he's had so many injuries and he's been in and out of the lineup, some people forget like how dominant he can be. A couple years ago, he was being picked to win a Cy Young. So I think that if he gets back to the old Jack Flaherty, I think that's a big addition for them. I like their position players. I think I'm like you, James. Like in general, like I'm kind of tired of the Cardinals. There's like, unless you're a Cardinals fan, I don't think that they're a very popular team. Like for whatever reason, there's just something about them that kind of like irritates fan bases that aren't even in that division. That's why I asked
fans in sports, everyone knows.
Yeah, best fans in sports, like Packers fans. But I do like their team and I like their lineup. I like Arenado, of course, Goldschmidt. I like some of their outfielders. And I just think that they also have good pitching, especially if Jack can come back and be what he's been in the past. I just don't think the Brewers have enough bats. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what their floor really is. And, I wish Christian Yelich could get back to the level that he was at before or something close to that, but it just feels like those days have passed for whatever reason. And I just don't think they have the offense. I think it's the Cardinals division to lose, and I think they'll win it pretty comfortably, actually.
I feel like it'd be really fun to like put these two teams together and have like Arenado, Goldschmidt, Tyler O'Neill, Dylan Carlson, like in the same lineup with Rowdy, Willie Adames. That'd be a good team. Then Bernsey, Montgomery, Woodruff in that rotation.
Super team.
Yeah, super team. That team would actually be able to reach the top tier. We're going to talk about now. We got 10 teams left we haven't discussed. Astros, Yankees, Mets, Braves, Phillies, Dodgers, Padres, Blue Jays, and Guardians and Rays, who I think are kind of in their own little subset there. But these teams are, I think, the ones that we expect to be playoff teams this year in a pretty official way and expect to compete for a World Series. So throw it up to you guys right now. Our preseason power rankings. 20 minutes left here. Who do you think is number one heading into the season? The question Sarah was ready for originally.
All right. I will go first then. I mean, I'm staring at Randy's Yankees hat. I know what he probably wants to hear. I think it's still the Astros. I do kind of operate on the thought that if we have a World Series winner who is a tried and true, really good team, and a team that was not a fluke, that was really good all year, like they were, I'm going to assume they will be really good again until proven otherwise. I know they don't have Justin Verlander. I like the addition of Jose Abreu. I don't think that's the game changer here, but this is a team that was built on so much more than just Verlander. So I just have to assume they'll be really good again. But the Yankees are really close, and I love the addition of Rodon. I just think they've needed that 1A, 1B with Garrett Cole since they got him, and now they finally have that.
Randy, can I get a soundbite saying the Astros are the best team in baseball?
I think they are.
Yes.
Good.
I think I agree with Sarah until proven otherwise. You kind of have to. I don't think they lost. I know Verlander's a big loss, and I do think it will impact them. But until proven otherwise, I don't really see how you can pick somebody else at this point. Like coming into the season, I think that they've earned that distinction, and I don't think that they've lost enough to really take away from what they've accomplished and what they've built. To be quite honest, I didn't think that they were going to be this good. I think their pitching just took like a phenomenal step forward and really catapulted them to where they are now. I mean, I think if their pitching didn't take the step that it took last year, the Yankees probably won the World Series. So I think that's the deciding factor right here for me. I think they have a really good lineup. I don't think they have a great lineup, but they have enough to complement their pitching. And then their bullpen just became like this really big strength out of nowhere I think that was the most surprising thing. I mean, we knew about the starters, but I think their bullpen stepping up really made the difference for them. And I think that it made it really difficult to score runs against them, and I think their best reliever is not even their closer. So I think you have to give it to the Astros until somebody's able to knock them off. I do think that Yankees are clearly the second best team, at least in the American League. I think you can argue that they're a top 3 team in baseball. I think Atlanta has something to say. I think the Mets have something to say about that. And I think the Phillies, with Harper being healthy, have something to say in that. But I think it's very clear who the top 5 teams are, in my opinion. I think it's the Yankees and the Astros, and then in any order with basically the NL East teams and the Dodgers. So maybe 6. I think the Dodgers are taking a step back. I don't think that they're as formidable as they have been in the past. That's why I kind of forgot about them in this conversation of the top 5 teams. I think that the 3 NL East teams and the Yankees and the Astros are the 5 best teams, and I think that the Dodgers are a step behind them. And then you could just pretty much put them in whatever order you like. But I think for me, with Harper healthy, I think those are the 5 best teams in baseball going into the season.
Interesting. I was literally about to throw it to the Dodgers when you named the top 5 without them, because I can't remember a season in baseball in the last 5 where we didn't consider the Dodgers not only to be a top 3 team, but a top 5 team. So, Sarah, what do you think the Dodgers' greatest weaknesses going into the season, and do you take them seriously as a World Series contender?
I mean, I do take them seriously as a contender only because, especially with the balanced schedule, they're going to win that division no matter what. Well, they're probably going to win that division. I don't know what to expect of the Padres until we see Fernando Tatis really, truly playing in the outfield. So right now I do have the Dodgers ahead of the Padres, and that's why I would say they're more of a World Series contender. But I mean, their lineup got so much worse, and all of the sort of intangibles they had by having Trey Turner for the last year and a half, they lost that as well. And none of this is disrespect to Gavin Lux, who is a good player and who has gotten better at the major league level after being a bit disappointing when he first debuted. But I think everyone thought they would go out and they would get Correa, or they would re-sign Turner. They would be in the mix for one of those guys. And to have Trey Turner walk and not replace him with one of the other shortstops on the market, I think that makes them a lot worse. Obviously, losing Cody Bellinger is not really a loss based on the way they've been and the way he has played the last few years. But it was this beacon of hope that they had that maybe he would find it again. So they don't have that anymore. But I mean, Mookie Betts is one of the top players in baseball. Whenever you have him, you can't count a team out. We'll see what they get from Clayton Kershaw, who was very good when healthy last year. But of course, that's kind of the big question mark. And they'll continue to kind of piecemeal these rotations. And, will Noah Syndergaard be resurrected in LA the way we've seen other guys over the last few years? I don't know. But I just think they have so many different holes in places they hadn't over those last 5+ years that you were referring to. And they've also seen them. A lot of the players who were their absolute, the Dodger wins, the guys like Max Muncy and Chris Taylor really struggled last year. And I know that both were dealing with injuries. A lot of people are expecting a big bounce back from Muncy, but until we see that, all of a sudden, these aren't the eternally deep Dodgers.
No, far from it. As of right now, their starting outfield per roster resource heading into the season is Mookie Betts, which is good, then Trace Thompson and James Outman, who I'm sure most people don't even know those last 2 guys are. It was by 2 hot weeks from Trace Thompson
I love
last year.
Trace Thompson.
Yeah, he was fun last year. He does a lot of good things.
Wasn't Outman the guy who, didn't Outman come up and set multiple records for things done in the first few games of
I think
his career.
it was
I'm
like
pretty
2
sure.
walk-offs in 3 games or something weird like
Yeah,
that, or like
something like
2
that.
triples, something strange. Yeah, but these just
Yeah.
aren't Dodgers. It's weird.
Yeah, now that I think about it, I think the Padres win the division. I like what they're doing. They'll have a full year of Soto. Hopefully, whatever. He had that like one little stretch when he first got traded where I guess he was like making the adjustments of being with a new team and all the expectations of, kind of like boosting that lineup. I think they're really good. I forgot about them for a second. I think that they win the division. And I also believe clearly by like their recent history, if they need to add something at the deadline to impact the team, they're going to do it. And I'm not totally convinced that the Dodgers will do the same thing. I know that, there's been talk about the Dodgers not really wanting to tie up money because of the stuff with Bauer and like contractual stuff and what they were obligated and all that stuff with the suspension. And then the speculation of like waiting for Ohtani next year. I think it's very obvious that the Padres will do whatever it takes to like supplement this roster at any point of the season. And I think coming into this, they have just as strong a roster as the Dodgers. They might have a better roster in certain spots. I'm not saying like top to bottom that they're a superior roster. I think they do have question marks, but I think they will do what's necessary to add to this roster when the deadline comes. And I think that that's something we have to kind of put into the equation with San Diego specifically. I think getting somebody like Xander Bogaerts is a huge addition, not just for like the production, but like as someone that saw Xander Bogaerts a lot. I think he's an extremely competitive and like impactful guy, just like winning plays. He gets knocked for his defense, but a lot of times he's making a big play at shortstop. He's getting a big hit. I think he's a leader. I think he meant a tremendous amount to that Red Sox team. I think he was the heart and soul of that team. I think he's going to bring that to San Diego. And I think he's one of the right guys to have around Tatis, especially with Tatis coming off his suspension and things like that. I think he's just a great clubhouse guy. I think him along with Machado is going to be like a devastating left side of the infield. The Padres are legit. And again, I feel like they'll identify whatever they need to add at the deadline and they're going to get that person, whoever it is. And I think they'll probably add to their rotation at some point or their pitching staff, wherever they need to really address. And I think they'll win that division.
Let the record show. We're both going to go Padres here. So let's put them ahead of the Dodgers. We just convinced, I think, both of ourselves.
We just killed the Dodgers. Xander Bogaerts is so freaking consistent. It's going to be awesome just to see him as like a real guiding force in a team that has had over the last few years, even with Manny Machado and at times Fernando Tatis, such just spells of coldness, just unbelievable droughts of offense for a team that did have good hitters. But Randy, I got one for you now because 2 teams we haven't talked about yet. Well, we haven't really talked about the Yankees. We alluded to them, but also the Blue Jays and the Rays. Is this going to be a race in the American League East, or is this going to be something like, you have a 6, 7, 8 game cushion for many, many months and walk to the playoffs?
Do you want me to be objective or subjective?
We're here for entertainment. Anything you want.
I think the Yankees are clearly the best team in that division. I think that Toronto's better than Tampa, but I'm not sure how close they are to the Yankees. Speaking right now, I want to like add that caveat. We're speaking in January. I tend to think that if the Yankees are healthy, that's the big caveat with them, of course, because that never happens. But if they're healthy, I think that they win that division pretty comfortably by the end. I don't think Toronto's as good as the Yankees. I think the Rodon signing like really just like pushes the Yankees forward and I think gets them closer to Houston. Sarah mentioned earlier that 1A, 1B. I think Rodon just adds a lot to that rotation, something that we've been hoping for was a Severino or someone else. Cortez obviously had a great season, but I think to have somebody that's like that elite pitcher to go side by side with Cole makes a huge difference. I think Toronto's good. I don't want to disrespect them or dismiss them. I think they're good. But they seem to be like lacking something as well. I don't think their bullpen is great, even with their addition with the Hernandez trade. I really think they need Bichette to like have a great year. I think he kind of had a down year for someone of his caliber and talent level. I do think they need another lefty bat to like really make that lineup potent. I know they got Varsho, but I think they need like a power impact lefty bat. And I just don't think they have enough lefty bats still. And the Rays are the Rays. I mean, I don't really know what else to say about them. I mean, they just keep doing what they're doing and win a bunch of games, and you're wondering, how are they doing this? I think it'll help to have Wander obviously be healthy for the entire year. They'll figure out a way to win games. Glass now will be back. I think their pitching will be amazing. I think they'll have one of the best staffs in the league. I mean, I think the Rays are the Rays, and they're going to be competitive, and they'll probably be in the division race for much longer than one would assume if you look at their roster from top to bottom. But their pitching is going to obviously drive them. But they obviously need way more offense than what they have. But I do think that the Yankees are the class of that division as of right now. And as long as they're healthy, they should win. And they definitely need another bat. I mean, I've been saying this last year. I think a lot of Yankees fans have that. They're just missing one more impact bat. Obviously, like left field is the obvious spot, but they just need a power lefty bat like Toronto does. And I feel like that's the Achilles heel of this team. And I think that's why they lost to the Rays for a couple years. And I think that's why they keep losing to the Astros. They don't have a power lefty bat to combat these elite pitching staffs in the playoffs. And it's still a problem. I think it will continue to be a problem until they get someone. And I think that's the one part of the ceiling that kind of like keeps pushing them down when it matters the most.
Definitely. I do think these three teams are so fun to compare just because they've all been so competitive for the last few years. And they all have such different identities in terms of team building, in terms of types of players they have, in terms of management. They're all so unique, especially from one another, but all very competitive in the full baseball landscape. And you can't not be more excited about that Carlos Rodon signing. That could be the single most like consequential free agent signing we've seen in the last year. Like he now gives the Yankees, with Verlander's departure to the Mets, probably two starters better than anybody in that rotation. And in a playoff series, like we've seen how important like a starting pitcher, like having a dominant starting pitching really is.
Yeah, I mean
they're both. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Sarah.
They're both projected for like 230 plus strikeouts. I believe it's 234 for Rodon and 249 to lead the majors for Cole by Steamer. And the Yankees have never had a year with two guys with 230. There have been 15 teams to have at least two guys with 230. Cole was part of it twice in 19 and 18 with the Astros with Verlander. But the Yankees have never done that. And to me, the fact that has been something very doable over the last, say, 10-ish years with the way we've seen strikeouts go, to me, that is the game changer for them.
Yeah, it's almost as if they've changed their profile a little bit. Like, I'm saying they need an impact bat, and they might say, well, it might not matter because we have Rodon and Cole. We're going to invest more in run prevention because we can't get that bat and see where that takes us, because they've obviously invested in defense a lot over the last couple of years as well. So they might be changing their profile in real time where they feel like they might not need that bat if they can kind of suppress runs. But James, we're missing the elephant in the room. Your boys.
That's my guys.
Yeah. How do we feel about the Mets?
I mean, it's so hard as a Mets fan just looking at the way things ended last year and like getting up for this one, because it's just like the hopes of a regular season have just been crushed because like it doesn't matter anymore, because all you have to do is just stay ahead of these other teams and just be hot and healthy at the right time. But and also just the weirdness of the Correa situation, but being able to replace everything they lost the way they did between Verlander, Senga, Quintana, and David Robertson, I think was pretty incredible. In addition to re-signing Nimmo, who, Sarah, I feel like he was even in the top 5 center fielders, right, in the ranking.
Yeah, I think so. I actually have the list up. One sec, I will tell you. Yeah, I had him 4th, as did the Shredder. Yeah, I mean, I talk about this a lot. I think he's an underrated player despite playing in New York. And it's funny to think of that. But I do think that's true. I think bringing him back was big. I think that, like the Yankees, they're missing one more big impact bat. I think the idea of Correa made me a lot more solid on the Mets lineup, and now that they won't have him, it's just the idea of what happens if Pete Alonso goes into a slump. I'm expecting Francis Lindor to be really steady for them all year. The really big thing for him in 2022 was that he didn't have to be the guy. So if that continues and he is just every day really good for them, but maybe not the overall game changer, then who else is there? And so we'll see with that. And of course, the catching situation for them. But I love the defense from Tomas Nido. So I'm really excited to see what he does with being basically the starter right now.
Definitely. And I do think that is just the problem with the Mets, even going back to last year when they struggled in September. There's really just one power bat in this lineup. And Correa would have been a good second one, but now we're probably in a situation where a lot of this is going to have to be shouldered by a prospect that steps up between either Francisco Alvarez or Brett Baty. I think Baty's closer just because he's probably a major league caliber defender right now. And I think the projections do like him a little bit more than Alvarez at the given moment. He's also, I think, 2 or 3 years older, but they're almost in a situation where one of them has to really take a step for this team to actually take their step, because they're this basically the same as last year and they won 100 games, which is a great place to be. And that'll get you to the dance, but it's just about someone else being that guy who can, break a game in the blink of an eye.
I mean, the other thing I will say with them, and someone pointed this out in the chat, I have the Twitch chat up. Their pitching is really old. Right, other than Senga, their pitching is really old. And I love Max Scherzer. I love Justin Verlander, Jose Quintana, you name it. These are really good guys to have around. Carlos Carrasco, but they're old. So if we're talking about will the Rangers rotation live up to it, I think we need to say the same with the Mets. Again, Verlander was really great last year. Scherzer was also really good. Didn't miss a ton of time, but he did miss time, right? And each of them were on the injured list for a stint, and they're only getting older. And again, these are 2 Hall of Famers. Like, there's no question there. But you do have to wonder how many starts are those 2 going to combine for. I know people were joking around with over-unders for DeGrom total starts during his entire contract. The comeback I would say to that is, what is the combined number of starts for JV and Scherzer this year? And I hope it's 60 or more into the postseason, because we all deserve to see Hall of Famers pitch. But it is a question there for sure.
That's very valid fear.
The Mets are more volatile than I think people are talking about. I mean, I think they can go win another 100 games, or they can have a very disappointing season where fans are calling for somebody's head. I think with the lineup and the rotation, there are a lot of question marks that I think, because all the focus on Cohen and how much money they're spending, that kind of covered up that part of the discussion. But the Mets feel like pretty volatile to me. Like, it could go one way or the other pretty quickly. As a New York baseball fan, I hope it goes in the right direction for them. But yeah,
I'm joking.
But I do feel like a couple of things go wrong and it might go downhill pretty quickly, and they might not be able to recover from it. So they're interesting. I think the Braves are the best team in that division, and than it's the Phillies and the Mets, just because of that volatility with the Mets.
I kind of think I heard Nick's back, but I kind of think it's the opposite. I kind of think the Phillies are the team with a step up, and we got to get out of here. But the Mets and the Braves are once close, a little bit behind. Nick.
Well, the one thing I wanted to say, first of all, that was a fantastic panel. Really appreciate all of you being here. Quick hits. Who is in the World Series and who wins? Randy, we'll start with you.
Yankees.
Against?
San Diego.
Okay. Sarah?
All right, I like that. I'll say something different. I'll say Astros and Braves again. Why not? But I was gonna say Yankees Padres. I just didn't want to.
Oh, wonderful. That's awesome. James.
Mets over Yankees.
Mets over Yankees. Whatever. I'm gonna go Mariners winning the whole thing.
Wow.
Nice.
Because George Kirby steps up, Gilbert figures out a breaking ball and then all Julio Rodriguez and all the hype and that chemistry and all that fun stuff.
I love it.
I'll go with your Mets, James, even though I don't think the rotation is gonna last.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
They're not gonna last.
No, probably
I want them
not.
to, but they're not.
6-man rotation. We'll find a way.
But I gotta say, I love the fact that this year I feel like there are more teams that are actually really good.
Yeah.
You know, that's a really exciting part. Sure, we have like the A's, but we have so many really good teams. And I'm so excited to see how all of them play out. And hey, maybe the Twins actually do something with Correa and Tyler Mahle is all right.
Maybe.
And all of that stuff, Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan. And that should be
Just
really
don't
fun
play the
rotation.
Yankees and they might have a chance.
I mean, yeah, I'm with you guys. Like they need like one more thing and they just
That should have been the question. Will a team from the Central win a playoff series?
Yeah.
the real thing is getting rid of Aroldis Chapman. Just purge him and now we're okay,
Yes.
right?
To the AL Central. There you go. Full circle.
Yeah. But anyway, James, Sarah, Randy, thank you all so much for being here. That was a fantastic panel. Hope to see you guys next year.
Thank you so
For
much,
sure.
Nick.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.